Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I actually forgot to do the introduction for this following video just because the conversation was so good. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that before I actually started and introduce who the following guest speaker is for today's episode. But the person who I met just inspired me. And it's really nice as a content creator to be able to have people that share similar journeys or journeys of their own. And I really enjoyed the following interview. This is for those who are looking to be content creators. If you are transitioning out of the military, if you are transitioning to a new career, there's not one person that this video is for, but many. As people, we want to talk to people about how we feel or share what we're going through throughout the day. I think something that happened, especially during the pandemic, was that we were inside a lot and we didn't know if people were feeling the same way. And we couldn't talk to a lot of people. And the only way that we could do so was online. And I believe that LinkedIn is truly changing the way it was perhaps at the beginning of the pandemic, very professional like. And right now, you can find people who are talking about what you want to hear about. So whether you are, again, transitioning out of the military, whether you want to talk about mental health, imposter syndrome, do you want to talk about just data? Do you want to talk about just Salesforce for a lot of my viewers? There's space and content for that. But it's also growing at the same time where you can start feeling comfortable about posting things that you want to. Because the more you start posting about areas that you want to talk about, the more you're going to attract circles that do the same thing. So for today's guest, I have Albert. And even before I introduce him and show the interview, I want to showcase his profile. I think it's really important to show you guys, who he is. And let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, so for today's episode, we have Albert Bellamy here. First and foremost, the reason I decided to interview him was because my husband is also a military member and he recently transitioned out about a year ago. And I shared this in Nick's recent interview, which I'll go ahead and link right here. But that transition was not easy. It was not easy for him, of course, and it was not easy for myself, and it was not easy on the relationship. And I am opening up in this way. Just because I know a lot of other people need to hear that. And it's just the reality, it's not always a easy flowing process. So it was very nice to be able to find Albert because he showcased, his path from leaving the military to transitioning, but also to growing and understanding how to utilize LinkedIn, personal branding, just all of these different niches that he grew from. So that's the first thing that I really loved about his profile. The second thing that I really captured my eyes was I'm a Marine who smiles at spreadsheets. How can you not love that? So that definitely caught my eye. But if you just scroll down to his featured section, I got really curious about him. Of course, he promotes, how he grew in a year. Look at that. He gained 10,000 followers in a year. And he's going to be talking about that and how he really started his content journey in the interview now. But how to get a job on LinkedIn, his digital networking and personal branding. And he tells a story behind this one. But this is just so interesting to be able to hear from somebody who didn't have a goal to really blow up on LinkedIn. Who didn't really have a goal to blow up on LinkedIn. And it wasn't his primary intention, but he grew a community. And something that we both share at the end is as content creators, you really do discover yourself. So I think that's why a lot of us stay in this. So I believe that's why a lot of us post, because it's almost a form of therapy, but it's also a way to find out who you are and ultimately who you want to be. So if you are considering content creation, this episode is totally for you. And one last thing that I want to share, final area before we go into the interview that I want to talk about is for the month of December, Albert is doing something fun and he's using the hashtag 12 days of tribute, where you pay tribute to somebody in your network, whether that be family, friends, a mentor. You say more than just thank you. you appreciate them for what they're doing. You tell people. Way too often do we just say thank you. And we don't really get to express how we want to do it. I believe that on LinkedIn, there's kind of like that. Well, where do you pass that line of saying, well, thank you, I appreciate it, to, hey, you know what you actually did really meant a lot to me. And I think that's part of what we're seeing in the change of LinkedIn in 2021 to 2022, is that we are seeing content and emotions and all of these different things really change. So I hope everybody enjoys the interview. Feel free to reach out to myself or to him. And I also will be doing a newsletter just talking about his progress and really, and I will be doing newsletter just talking about his progress and this interaction, really what I gained from it. So everybody enjoy the episode. So when you start taking like the video from earlier, 12 Days of Tribute, did you do one recording of it, or was it just like?
That one was one take. I'll usually screw up something badly enough, or I'll just completely lose my train of thought and just have like 5 seconds of dead air and I don't feel like editing it. So I'll just go back and start over.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one today was one take. I was just like in my car. I'd gone to PT, and then I had a morning meeting, and that wrapped up, and I was just sitting in my car. I was like, let's let her rip on this thing. So I wrote it out, kind of read through my notes, was like, all right, I think I got it. Wow. Kind of propped my notes up on the dashboard of my car and recorded. Yeah, that was one take. So it's putting the captions on that's annoying. Like I left some typos in there today because I just feel like messing with it. So yeah, I mean, once I scrolled through, I was like, it's good enough. There's nothing in there. Like it didn't put any swear words in or anything like that. So
yeah. I think more people are going to listen to the video. I don't know if you knew this, but only 1% of people post on LinkedIn. Just one. Yeah.
I knew it was low.
It's incredible. It's like so low. I just took a LinkedIn course. And the LinkedIn coach said that only 1% post. There's 1% that are giving.
I believe it.
And the rest are just readers. So it's really interesting especially because I love data too. Salesforce. So just to see the tracking of hearing you talk about like your content go up, I think that's cool, and I think that people want to post, and so many times people will come to me and just be like, I want to post. And I'm like, do it. Like, you're not going to regret anything. Because the more you post, the more you keep bringing in a circle of people who actually enjoy what you're talking about.
Yep. And a lot of it is just, it's just like simplistic to say it's courage. Like, yeah, you just have to have the guts to put something out there. Mm-hmm. But it's more than that. It's like the courage to make a mistake and then just be like, yeah, whatever. I misspelled a word, say something, and just walk away.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, it's like the courage to be kind of publicly imperfect. Mm-hmm. That, that's the thing that most people can't get past. Because professionally, I mean, just used to, is like, I'll ask people for their resume if they're like, oh, I can't find a job, what can I do? I'm like, well, let me see. Like, I'll look at your LinkedIn profile if you want me to, and let me see your resume. And they're like, oh, my resume is not ready. I'm like, well, I know it's not ready. Like, you're not getting job offers. Like, why don't you show it to me? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. But yeah, people are just so terrified of like, making a public mistake. And that's why, like, I used to go back and edit posts. Like, I would post them and then I would look at it and be like, oh, there's a typo. And I'd go 5 minutes later, go back in and edit it. And now it's like,
same.
Yeah, just let it ride.
Yeah. And I think that's one of this girl, this woman that I follow. She's also a military spouse. She left Salesforce to do her own content creation. And she used to talk to me about like, don't go back and fix those mistakes, because you want people to see those mistakes, because then it helps them in the future be like, well, what if I make a mistake? Well, look at my mistake. Yeah, and exactly. I love when people comment and they come to me individually and they're like, oh, I don't know if you saw this, but you spelled boring wrong or something like that. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But then that helps that engagement, like somebody that I never would have talked to. We're talking now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. Now, I've had people do that, and they're all like, kind of like, they'll DM you and be like, "Oh, you have a typo." I'm like, yeah, man, I saw it. I appreciate it though. not fixing it.
Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
So what type of people are coming to you? Like, what type of content did you start with? And then what type of content do you see yourself moving towards now?
So first it was like, really all I was posting about was military transition and just kind of, and a lot of like just talking about the programs that I was taking advantage of, because military transition is just kind of in this, I'm sure you've seen, it's just in this very weird space where there's these congressionally mandated transition courses, which is just kind of universally mocked and hated. Just they're just kind of inadequate, and they just, there's only so you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And it's the same thing with lance corporals or E3s, E4s of any color in the military. It's like you can tell them like, hey, like the hand holding is done the minute you hit your EAS. Like that last paycheck is, we love you forever because you're, once a Marine, always a Marine, but we're not like, you're not getting any more like free help at that point. And they'll kind of nod their head and say, yep, got it. And you say, okay, well, what are you doing with your life? Lance Corporal is like, it's always either I'm going to go to college or I'm going to be a cop. And it's like, all right, I know just from the way you're saying that, you have no plan whatsoever. You're just winging it. And, and a lot of them have, like a wife and kid, and you're like, it's going to be tough sledding, brother. I wish you the best, but I can't force you to be responsible with your life. You're just going to have to learn that the hard way. So anyway, so military transition, just a tough racket. And then one of the most confusing things is if you are actually being proactive with it and you are going out there realizing I've got responsibilities and a whole life ahead of me, and and I want to do something with it, not deliver pizzas for 6 months while I decompress. That there are so many assets and programs available to you that you can kind of get like almost snow blindness from the, all of the good stuff hitting you in the face. And you're just going, I don't even have time for all of this.
Yeah.
So it seems like people go like one of two directions. And so a lot of it was, I was just talking about like the programs that I was taking advantage of. And then as those posts started to gather steam, some of them, like I'd post something and people would come back and say, have you tried this program? It's all about this, this, and this. So once I saw that happen a couple of times, then I started throwing out the kind of emotional bid. And I tried to make it more than just thoughts or, agree. Like that drives me up the wall. But to ask people an actual question like, hey, here are my top 5 avenues of enabling my transition. These are the 5 programs that I'm using the most. What are you guys using and why? Let's kind of get this together. And I would make it kind of a team sport, to where it's like, hey, I'd really like to write a paper on this, or I'd like to, most of them I never got around to. But, I'd really like to kind of consolidate this and have this be a useful asset to people. And just get tons of people just talking about programs and assets and points of contact that, some were useful, some weren't. Most I didn't have time to even play with. But that's what started getting an audience. And so I started building a lot of military transition, that and going to those webinars, like every time I'd make like 30, 40 new contacts. And then off of that, when I got a mentor in data science, and he started recommending, he's like, hey, you should study this first, let's work on SQL, get some certifications under your belt, we need to move on to Amazon Web Services, which I never actually did. But he was recommending this course of study. And so I started talking about that, just openly, like, hey, here's what I'm planning to do. And I would just, rather than just showing like, look at me, I got the level 1 SQL certificate on DataCamp. Everyone clap. That kind of struck me as lame right off the bat, because I'm like, okay, I'm knocking out these little low-level certificates left and right. I know there's no real effort required to complete a Udemy course. Like you just sit there until it's done. So anyway, so I immediately took sort of a dim view of people just post certificate, view my verified achievement. Like there's nothing there. You're not doing anything. You're not proving anything. But what I started doing was like, I'm listening to all these podcasts. I'm listening to Kenji, every week. And, I was listening to Artists of Data Science. I was listening to How to Get an Analytics Job, which is what I eventually worked on. And I would just, when I would listen to one, I would just kind of curate the content. And I learned to take a screenshot of like the best picture that would garner the most attention and attach that, and then kind of put the link in comments, just a little kind of shady algorithm tricks. But then I started noticing that I was getting people to follow me for data related content, which is mind blowing, because it was like, I wanted to kind of gather them all together and be like, I don't know shit about this stuff, right? I got a degree in like military analytics. Is just, we're like calculating the best way to sweep a minefield and stuff like that. And so it gets you in an analytic mindset, but there's not a lot of saleable skills there. So I had no platform knowledge. The one tool we used was a BI platform called JMP, which nobody uses. I guess the military just got a discount on it. It's actually pretty good for statistical analysis, but it doesn't do visualizations with the crap or anything compared to like what Datorama or Power BI or Tableau can do. Yeah. So it's like, if somebody hired me right now and say, hey, what platforms do you know? Excel. That's it. End of list. And I honestly, I didn't know Excel worth the crap back then. I mean, I was still at the kind of point and click and hand type numbers in. And so I had a guy showing me how to use like pivot tables and stuff like that. So yeah, it blew my mind that I could sit there and talk about like, I don't know anything, but I've learned this today. Yeah. And people would not only, like, I expected people to be able to relate to it and engage with it. I didn't expect people to want to follow that. And then after like, no time at all, a month or two, people saying like, oh, you're a really good example. Like I love following your content, or I love reading your stuff. And I'm like, I've never heard of you. Like, you seriously, like, you're reading me like I'm a blogger, or I've got something worthwhile to say. I literally watched a YouTube video and talked about what I learned from it. So, yeah, that was just, and that's the thing that I try and pass to people. It's like, you can be interesting just by the fact that you've got the guts to talk about your story. Yeah. And that was a lot of what we saw over the last month, 6 weeks or so, was people just garnering a following in a circle just by talking about themselves and what they're doing and what's happening in their lives.
So with the content now, and just to kind of, even before I say that,
I went down 10 rabbit holes for you to choose.
Oh no, you're fine. By the way, I used to be an admissions counselor for 2 data science programs. So
awesome. Which ones?
Syracuse University, and it was super military friendly. And then I went to UC Berkeley. So it was total like 360, right? Yeah. Syracuse is more of like an introduction. That's when data science was like the hot thing. And then I went after a year to UC Berkeley and did their data science program. And this is like people that were working in the field even before data science was known as data science. And it was so cool talking to them. Just all of these ideas that people wanted to do. Like I remember working at this one guy who worked at Disney, and one guy at Pixar who was the animations data science director. And I was like, I didn't even know you could do this with data science. And it was all about visualization. That was the #1 class that everybody loved, data visualization, because they could finally understand how to put all of that data and kind of be like that middle spokesperson, right? You have the people that do the data, and then the business people. How do you communicate that data to people? So that was a class that did it. That's how you put all of that knowledge, and then you made it just not pretty, but like in a functional way where a brain could understand what.
That's pretty.
Yeah. So it's really cool. So very, very, very familiar with data science. But people are always watching, I think you said something super important, is like when you're posting content, it's the mere fact that you're posting it. People want to say things, but they question themselves. And it's really imposter syndrome. I mean, I have it before I post things too. I'm like, it's going to be good. I don't know, whatever. Okay, click. And those
Find out.
that you doubt
See
are
what
the
those metrics look like.
yeah. And it's actually super interesting. And I would love to ask you like two questions. You know, coming from a data science background, analytical background, how has it been for you? Has it been more interesting to be able to track the data behind your postings in that aspect?
Yeah, I don't actually. The funny thing is, I don't actually geek out as much about it as you might think, because there's something about, I just kind of want to go like back of the napkin on that sort of stuff, because the thing with doing, with doing 2 posts a day every day for really was about better part of 6 months that I was doing that. And I got a I got a SkillBridge internship, and it was like, oh, my day job is like overwhelming again, so I can't do this stuff. Um, so anyway, so I had to ramp down that, and I couldn't just like cut out during the day to go do podcasts at like noon.
Yeah.
Which was when we did them. But so shit, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, analytics. So I had Shield AI for a while, and I had it. Well, there was like some little sponsorships that we got for the podcast.
Wow.
And in lieu of actually paying me, the podcaster would just be like, "Oh, if you work out this sponsorship for the YouTube videos, you can just pocket the money." I'm like, okay. So it was, this is like $100, couple $100 here and there.
Yeah.
So it was nice, just
Awesome.
paid a bill for a month or two. But what I was like, I used it to justify a subscription to Shield Analytics, and then but it was always just kind of a curiosity to me. Like I would look at something and I would kind of just draw some mental parallels, be like, okay, like this kind of content works, this doesn't.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing I figured out, and I used to constantly make fun of these two guys, was that anytime I posted a picture of either Alex Freberg or Harpreet Sahota, those posts would just take off. And I used to joke that I could literally post a picture of Harpreet and just like squiggle on the keyboard, like just post gibberish. And if it was a picture of Harpreet, like it would get a 10% click-through rate and umpteen reactions and people talking. So but yeah, that was the funniest thing. But I was like, what's the common thread here? Like dudes with goatees? Like I don't know. But but it didn't apply to other people. Like I could post a picture of Shashank Kalanathy, who has a goatee, and like nothing. So I don't know, something about our audience just like those two guys. But I just liked seeing the parallels. It was like, okay, what time, it was just things I learned. Like I could post personally at a couple different times and it would still get good engagement. The organizational page, like if it wasn't out by 8, nobody was going to see it. So it was like super time sensitive. There were certain things like people wouldn't respond if you started talking to them as the organizational page. They would respond. So I had to do a post from the How to Get an Analytics Job page. And then when people would respond, I had to log in as myself and respond to them as a person. And then they would carry on a conversation. Even though they knew for a fact it was me posting just under the page's banner, I just noticed like nobody would ever respond to that. Yeah, strange. I would carry on conversations with myself sometimes in order to sort of game the algorithm, but but I had many plans to do up some sort of omnibus analytics project about the whole experiment. It was originally supposed to be a 1-month project for December of last year. I wound up working on it until, honestly, it was like end of July that I really stopped. So, but yeah, I never, other than just looking at the views metric that comes up, and then as time went on, they enhanced the organizational pages with a ton of different metrics. Early on, it was pretty basic, and then LinkedIn did a really good job over time of showing you more like views and clicks and page visitors and kind of what different varieties, who's seeing you on desktop, on mobile, stuff like that. So it's really a lot more interesting now. At the time that I started it, you really could only see like how many followers you had, how many ones had joined you recently, you know, still sort of real basic stuff. But yeah, the analytics is kind of just all up here, which is weird because I do enjoy documenting stuff like that. But yeah, never got around to writing anything or doing a project on it. It's a shame.
Well, I think like as content creators, like we can take all of this advice from people and definitely try it out. But I think in the long run, you know your audience, you know what they like, and you know how you function best. So that's why a lot of it just stays up here. So for those that are watching right now, like I'm going to be speaking to the audience, can you tell us about, you know, one document that I saw when I went on your page and it was awesome. And you kind of encouraged me to do this was kind of like what I was talking about earlier, that ebook. You have a presentation of networking and personal branding. How did you come up with that idea and how has it gone?
That one came up over time. Like, so jumping in the Wayback Machine, I want to say in October of last year, that was when, so the 30-day challenge wrapped up. I made a post that, you know, now would be like pedestrian metrics, but I think at the time it was like, it was the first post I had that got, I don't know, 3,000 or 5,000 views or something like that. And I just posted the graph of my page views, how they had gone off the charts. And, you know, again, at the time, it was like, I think I had 200 views in a week, you know, which was like monumental then. And so, because like the best I'd ever had before was like 30. But I posted that and I just talked about the experience and kind of, you know, the attention that I was getting and the number of people that were kind of resonating with what I was putting out there, and it was how cool it was. And that's when John David, the guy that ran the podcast, said, "Hey, would you like to, you know, we've got some kind of slow periods coming up. Would you like to be a guest on the podcast?" I'm like, hell yeah. Yeah. So I came on there, did a guest spot. You know, it was a short one. It was like probably like half an hour total, that first show. And then, you know, a couple of weeks later, like my episode posted and it did fairly well compared to some of their, you know, the recent trend of episodes. And so, and I did a good job of going on there and helping promote it, which I think drove up the views. And then, yeah, and then he asked me to take over the LinkedIn page for a month for December. And so I was going to say no, because I had just started like really studying data science and working on what my mentor was having me do. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if I really have time for that. I really need to like start grinding on, you know, at the time I was like, yeah, maybe I'm spending too much time on LinkedIn. I need to like hit the books and get on to, you know, learning these computer platforms. And, you know, little did I know that was like easy street compared to how much time I would eventually spend on LinkedIn. But all worked out in the end. But so he asked me to come on again because he did like a kind of a hiatus over the holidays, and then he started his season 2. So he asked me to be the first guest of season 2, which was like 2 months after I had just been a guest on the show previously. Yeah. But he had this new concept where he teaches at he teaches a class or two at a couple different colleges in Greensboro, North Carolina. So his analytics class at Greensboro College, he was going to have them sit in on the podcast once a week, and he was going to have guest lecturers come in and teach his class. So he said, "Hey, I'd love to have you, you know, the first month is going to be about branding and networking. I'd love to have you come on and teach them what you know." You tell a Marine to teach a class, he's going to make you a PowerPoint. It's just what we do. So, I mean, I know like the other services are probably even worse. You guys will probably like geek out on that thing far more than I did. But that was the first time I would put together a PowerPoint brief talking about kind of my networking and branding journey and, you know, and what I'd found that had worked and what hadn't. And it was all from my personal page really at the time. I think it was a little bit from the organization. But then I started getting asked onto like other shows, and then he started asking me to help out with the podcast. But that was the first time I did a class, and then other people started asking me to come in and do like speaking engagements over Zoom calls. And so there was one, like I did a big one that was like an hour and a half. I don't know how I managed it, but yeah, it was like an hour and a half version of that. I probably talked on that first PowerPoint for like 25, 30 minutes total. Wow. I did one to a business group in Oman. Mm-hmm. It was an hour and a half. And that was like kind of the everything I've learned.
Yeah.
And I think that slideshow is on there too. It's all in my featured section somewhere, unless I took it down. I'll have to check. But yeah, and so that last one, like that was kind of the pared down, like kind of super motivated one, because it was for a student group in India, and they were doing this like 2-day data conference. They were having all these speakers, and they wanted me on for, I think it was half an hour. And so I had a specific half-hour time slot, and I got to pick. And it was I could either go at like 12:30 a.m. on Sunday, or like 3:30.
Yeah.
so I was like, between the two, I suppose I'll take 3:30, because I'm not into the staying up late thing anymore at my age. So
yeah,
getting up early is far better for me. But yeah, so I knew it was like, all right, I got to have this be like a blitz. I mean, this has got to be like pictures and animations and dumb stuff where, I'm going to like kind of get myself psyched up and motivated. And, I got up and I, made myself a super caffeinated cup of coffee and I put on my utility uniform just without the blouse, like the Kenny blouse. So I was what we call boots and utes. So, combat boots, utility trousers, and an olive drab green t-shirt. Because I was just like, my wife was looking at me, I was like right next to the bed at my computer. And she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm getting ready for combat. Duh, come on.
Oh.
So yeah, but that was the slideshow I made for that presentation. And that one I was the most proud of, because I was just like, all right, it's a bunch of students, like, I can't be sitting there like droning on.
Yeah.
And plus, I've got to get myself woken up and motivated at 3:30 in the morning to blast through this thing. Yeah, and I did it like breakneck speed. I think that video is on there. They actually trimmed it down, because the original show was like 6 hours long, which you can find that on YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. I'm at like the 4-hour mark or something like that. But yeah, they actually cut it down to each speaker, and that's on there. I think it's the second one of my featured profile. So that's nice, because it's just me. You don't have to try and scan through this hours long video to find me.
6 hours. That's awesome. That's really exciting. I feel like with content creation, the doors open that you never thought were there. But the amazing people that you get to meet along the way, I think that's the coolest part.
Oh yeah.
Because then you meet other content creators and you're like, oh yeah, you went through that too. Okay. We can understand each other. So where do you see yourself going now? Like outside of your job, like I know you love data, but where and what do you want to do for yourself and your future?
I mean, there's so many things that I like beat myself up about all the time that I haven't done yet.
Yeah.
So it's tough for me to even think of like, well, what are my goals? Like, yeah, my goals are to do all that stuff I said I was going to do 6 months ago. So I finally have started meant to do more with this past challenge, but I finally started putting stuff on YouTube kind of in no real organized or strategic fashion. Yeah. I did have one video that hit 1,000 views, so I was super psyched about that.
Yeah.
So Luke Bruce, the data analyst, he picked up on it. We're friends because we've kind of given each other shit a few times over different videos that we've done. So he did an entire video that was basically just like making fun of me, which was pretty awesome. I was super honored. But yeah, so he picked up on it, and so he like gave his audience a recommendation, and then I think he and I both promoted on LinkedIn. So that's what I mean. It's a decent video, but yeah, it was like I have no business getting 1,000 views on YouTube. I have 100 subscribers. So But yeah, that's something that I've kind of meant to do for a while. I have some content ideas that, that play, can only be done on video.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, doing some more with that. I don't intend to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Or to kind of tie myself to consistent content creation with that. Just like I said, because it just takes up so much time.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy that. It's good stuff. My videos are super unrefined. It's same thing. It's like one, maybe two takes, and we're going.
Yep.
I have a domain. I have not actually started. I've been meaning to start a website, blog portfolio hybrid thing. So I have a domain bought. I haven't actually done any work on it yet. So
wow, do it
together.
That's awesome. Yeah. And the nice thing is that you can just add all your content that you have already and just put it into little sections. Once you have that website, woo, it feels good. Once it's done, it feels good.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I'll see when the wife will give me a weekend off that I can just on my website.
Yeah. So Albert, I know for the month of December, you just posted a video and it was called the 12 Days of Tribute. Can you tell the audience a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So trying to build on some of the community that we built with the LinkedIn Hard Mode Challenge. And a lot of those people, most of them are now complete with it, although you can do it whenever. Mm-hmm. And there was some expression that, people missed it. There was some joking to me about, hey, when are we starting our next content challenge? So I kind of already had this one in the idea phase. And I said, well, there's a desire, we're going to run with it. So I wanted to do a shorter challenge. I wanted to do something that was not as prescriptive because the hard mode challenge was to get people to kind of produce content that worked with the algorithm. This one is just, it's for fun and for, it's a serious subject, but it's just for people to enjoy. And so it is the 12 Days of Tribute that you can follow that hashtag. Went through a couple different name ideas. Nothing really seemed to describe adequately what I wanted to do. But that word is tribute, and it's to honor, to salute, to sort of publicly celebrate the people that have contributed to your success, particularly over the past year. Although you could go further if you like, but family members, mentors, bosses, team members where you work, organizations, whether it's the company that employs you or an educational platform, something that has helped you in this past year to get where you are today, and you want to give them a public attaboy. And that's what it is. We're going to start it this Sunday, which is the 12th. That way the 12 days wraps up on the 23rd, and everybody can go do whatever on Christmas, not worry about LinkedIn content creation while they're enjoying their holidays. But yeah, we really appreciate anybody that wants to join in. We built a great sense of community this past month, and really looking to continue where that left off.
Perfect. And for everybody watching, I'll make sure to have his LinkedIn below so you can see the recent video that just came out. And the last question I wanted to ask you is for those people that are watching right now, whether they're thinking about content creation or they are transitioning out of the military or maybe just transitioning into a new career in general, what are some things that you would like to say to them?
So first of all, I'd like to say that the difference between the haves and the have-nots on LinkedIn is the people that have the guts to create content. And so you can lurk all day long, you can read, you can click like, you can follow everybody, and you're making no impact until you start to speak. And if you need a crawl, walk, run approach, absolutely start with comments, make them good comments. Don't agree 100% or, commenting for greater reach or any of this sort of BS that goes on. Read somebody's stuff, give them a constructive comment, give them a constructive criticism, tell them what you liked about it, what you didn't like. But the real thing is just getting out there and putting your name on something and saying, this is my content and these are my thoughts. And so that's what separates you know, the winners from the losers on LinkedIn. If you're not doing that, to me, you're just scrolling aimlessly like you might be on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah.
So the thing that makes LinkedIn powerful is get out there and put your voice out there. Be professional, be respectful, but talk about your thoughts and your experience, and you're going to find an audience and you're going to find opportunity.
Yeah. And I think two important things from there is don't doubt yourself that nobody wants to hear you, because I'm a firm believer in this quote: don't censor your voice before the world has a chance to hear it. And also you find yourself kind of, at least I have, when you do content creation. Yeah. You find friends, you find a community, and then you start to find a little bit more of yourself. So it's a beautiful journey. And everybody should try it at least once. So
yeah, absolutely.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching. Albert, thank you so much for coming on, and hope to have you on in the future. And again, everybody watching, his LinkedIn will be below. Definitely check him out, and also start the hashtag starting this Sunday. We'll see you later, everybody. Thank you again, Albert.
You guys. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.